Hi everyone, my name is Deborah and this is the Edit by DH. This is another episode for the Dee Unedited series. This is episode 2. You may or may not have seen my part 1, which was all about the F word. So it was about my father, about being raised in a single parent family, and just like my childhood experiences. And as always with these episodes and the series, I always like to do a part 2, bring on a guest with a different perspective, but someone who may have like a similar life experience. So I have the lovely Alison Horner with me next to me. And thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on this episode. I do know Al, we used to work in beauty together. We worked for NARS. And Al was actually a little superstar. I think at some point during the time that we worked together, we were both managers. We share the same area manager, but Al
Mhm.
actually got recognized as, what was it, the top NARS artist?
It was NARS Artist of the Year.
NARS Artist of the Year,
Yeah.
which is a huge, huge accolade. And yeah, she really owned that, and it was an amazing opportunity for you, right?
Yeah, no, it was amazing, like, so unexpected.
Did you get to travel or
Yes, we went to New York,
um,
so it was for, like, I think it was 3 or 4 days, and it was one person from each. So, like, one person from Asia, one person from Europe, America. It was, yeah, it was amazing. So, yeah, really good fun.
and then you went on to become manager for Harrods. Obviously, everybody
Yeah,
knows the famous department store, even for those people abroad. So Al managed Harrods, and then eventually you went on to start your own business,
yeah.
which we'll speak about more in just a bit. You know, I want to really like hand over the mic to you and let you introduce yourself, and really like why you're on this episode today.
Mhm. So I'm Alison. So I started off in the beauty industry when I was 16. I worked on Benefit, just as like a counter girl. So I live in Kent, but the only counter that had a job at the time was in Shepherd's Bush in London. So I used to travel all that way because I was just so eager to have a job doing makeup. And then, yeah, I kind of worked my way along. I had my son, Frankie, and I had him at 18. I was with his dad. We were together from the age of about 15, 16, but unfortunately that sort of didn't work out. And then, yeah, I mean, I was always adamant to work. Both my parents have always worked, and I wanted to give him the best life possible. I love proving people wrong. People always, so many people said to me, "Oh, you're making such a big mistake. You've ruined your career, you've ruined your life." And I just was so adamant to do whatever it took to prove them wrong and just kind of do it on my own, no matter what. So yeah, I just carried on working through and just kept working my way up, really.
When you said that people said to you that you made a mistake, was that in relation to going into your own business, or was that in relation to stepping away from the relationship?
Both, really. I feel like every parent has kind of the vision for their child, obviously. And I feel like I mean, I was actually 17 when I fell pregnant, and it wasn't, planned or anything. I mean, I'd always dreamed of having like this perfect family. I'd always wanted kids, things like that, but obviously that's not what they had in mind. And I think naturally they were worried for me because it is a lot harder. I mean, I do often get asked actually by younger girls, "Oh, I'm pregnant. What should I do?" I've had like DMs on Instagram and things. And I mean, the thing that I always say is it's not impossible. It is doable, but it is a lot harder, I think, if you haven't got certain things behind you, especially in your career. And it does come at a huge sacrifice. So, yeah, that's sort of what you know, when people doubt me, I mean, they also obviously, when I then went to do my own business, obviously, as you know, I'd sort of reached sort of my peak in Harrods, and then I then decided I wanted to go, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" Like, and it was literally, I think I left 4 days before the first ever national lockdown, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" Like, and I just got a mortgage as well, so I was like, but I feel that I kind of thrive under pressure in a weird way, and I'm so glad everyone was like, "Try go back, try get furlough, whatever." But I was just like, "No, I'm just gonna has been my plan, and I just kind of had this belief somehow it's going to work.
Wow. Starting with NAS, you were
Yeah.
obviously working as a manager in full-time in quite a demanding job, right?
Yes.
I can say that because I work for the brand too, and in
You
it,
know what it's like.
my God. But then to have, a young child at the time,
Yeah.
how did you balance that?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like in the very early days, I kind of didn't. I feel like I wouldn't say balance, that's more kind of sacrifice. So when I was makeup artist, I was like 3 days a week. And then I knew that there's this kind of like cycle. And I knew if I broke it and got a good role within it, then I could, essentially earn well. But to get there was a lot of hard work and to prove myself. And, my area manager, she said, my concerns are that you're not going to be able to juggle being full time and being a manager. So she said, I'm going to put you as an assistant manager full time, and then we'll kind of review it in 6 months. Well, then 6 months, it was really hard. Like obviously childcare is really expensive, so I kind of use that family. I used to have a friend as well, and we used to swap days. So like on my day off I'd have her daughter, and on her day off she'd have Frankie. And then obviously my mum was amazing, his grandparents on the other side, they were absolutely amazing. And people kind of, one thing that does bother me is sometimes people will say, but not everyone has that opportunity, or has people around them or whatever. But I was still driving. I mean, I used to leave the house maybe at about 6 a.m. to drop him off. Sometimes I'd drive maybe an hour to like Bromley or wherever he had to go, drop him off, then get a train into London for an hour, do a full day's work, then come home. And most of the time he'd be asleep by the time I got home. And like, even to this day, I mean, he's 7 now, I can still it like breaks my back, but I can carry him up from the car and he stays asleep. Like, I think he's just used to it, heavy sleeper, and he'll go to bed. But that was literally like my life for like 6 months until I got that role, when I then moved back to Kent, and I had my first position as not business manager, account manager that was in a Phoenix store in Kent. So that was a lot closer. So that did then make it a lot easier. But then when I went back to Harrods, I'd say it was then very similar, long days. And you know what it's like. This is the thing, and this is what I'd say is almost like businesses don't care. Like, if you've got a global visit, you've got to be there. Like, it doesn't matter what, like, even I remember, we used to have the UK managers meetings, and one of the days, Frank's grandma, she let me down the night before. She was like, I'm really unwell, I can't have him. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to be there. And I actually got one of the girls in the team to like babysit him for the day, because she knew him. We'd be like, she's got younger brothers, we'd been around his house and things like that. But I was like, what can I do? Like, I can't not be in. And that's what I mean. It's a lot of sacrifices and a lot of juggling. But I think you just have to be so organised and so structured and regimented with it.
No, I respect that so much. What was the shift from like that routine that you spoke about, that, grinding every day in, day out, to suddenly going, do you know what? I want to start my own business. What was the shift?
When I knew that Frank was starting school, because obviously when I was there, I used to start off from like a Saturday, but then I'd normally have like a Sunday and like a Wednesday off. If anything, I would actually say that it was quite nice, because they were my days with him, and I'd always do something and I'd always make the most of it. And I never feel like our relationship suffered. He still always saw me as his mum, we're still very close and everything like that. But it got to the point when he was going to be starting school, I thought, I'm not going to like ever see him, because if I have to work the weekends, which often, I would sometimes have to work Sunday, things like that, like, I'm never going to see him or spend time with him. Plus the shifts and things. And I just thought, he's going into school, he needs to be a bit more settled, like with his bedtimes. If I'm finishing at like 9-10 o'clock, or getting home that time, then how's that going to work? And I just wanted something that is flexible. I think as well, again, I'm sure you can relate, when you work in that kind of industry brand, obviously there's not a lot of flexibility, and if things come up in that, and it does sort of consume your life. And I just didn't want that anymore. I believe everything in life serves a purpose, and I felt it served my purpose. I'd left on a high, and that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be one of these people that just kind of didn't care, run it into the ground. So yeah, it just felt like the right move to make for me.
And you mentioned earlier that like you left and then it was quite close to the lockdown period.
Yeah.
So how did you like tell me about the whole business starting up process in the middle
Yeah.
of the pandemic?
So it was chaos really. So yeah, I literally left, and then there was the announcement, and obviously at first we kind of didn't really know what was going to happen, what it meant, whatever. But I just kind of thought it will be fine. I mean, it was really hard because then it kind of just blew everything out of like the water that I had kind of planned, and I was a bit like, okay. Originally, I'd actually kind of planned to go back to doing makeup and do bridal for the summer, just to kind of keep an income whilst I kind of worked out what I wanted to do, because I felt like when I was in that role, I couldn't almost officially work it out. I had plans to do a salon, but I hadn't sort of finalised it. I was a lot in talks and things like that. And I was actually in talks with a much bigger premises and a much higher rent. And looking back in hindsight, I'm so glad it didn't work out, because had that have opened in that time, I would have then been, liable for the rent. Had I signed for it just before, it would have been disaster. It would have crippled me. So, so what then happened was, as time went on and things sort of started coming down, I was able to open the salon and, get it ready and everything, which was quite nice because I could give it my full attention because I had nothing else to do essentially. So I could really perfect it. And then it opened in the October 2020. We opened for 2 weeks and then we went into another lockdown. And I was just like, oh. And then I think it was open for another week. They had them like little mini, like, yeah, lockdowns. And then it closed for 6 months. And I was like, oh my God. Luckily, I was able to, you kind of got like the grants and things like that to sort of cover the rent and whatever and the bills. It was worse in a way when there was really high restrictions. The business suffered more then than it did actually being closed, because you'd have to say like all these restrictions, no traveling, no weddings, no holidays, no nothing, no restaurants open. Well, why people wouldn't come in to get anything done. So it was a lot harder in those times than it was actually being shut. So yeah.
Wow, I can't even imagine because I remember salons being closed and people being scared to travel. So
Mhm.
I remember like even my local salons not being open, and I remember thinking at the time, God, I don't even know how they're surviving during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And I know you said like the grants help, but still, it's such a tough industry to be in when something so
Yeah.
restrictive is in place. But where was like the silver lining? Like where are you at now? Because like for those who don't know, so you own two salons, right?
2 salons now, yeah.
The Kent area, and you also own an agency, like a
Yes.
makeup agency, makeup and
Yes. So that's our bridal side of the business. So what basically happened was, when we eventually sort of fully opened, it just kind of went crazy really. I mean, in my area there was nothing kind of what we were offering, doing the kind of concept of the business. I have a really amazing team who are all really skilled and talented in everything they do. And we had this tiny little salon, which it works like, I don't know how it works, it's like organized chaos, but it's just really busy like all the time. And then I was actually looking on whatever estate agents like whatever to I was actually seeing like what my rent was compared to other businesses locally. And then I came across this one, the second one that I opened, and it was already a salon, because when you open a salon, a lot of the money gets spent on like structural, the plumbing, like making it equipped for a salon. So when I saw that this was already a salon, I was like, oh my God, like this is perfect. It just needs kind of decorating, flooring, whatever. And so I was like, this is perfect opportunity. And we'd really outgrown the other one. My team was getting so big. It was just, there wasn't enough room for everyone in it. And this one was about 20 minutes away. So I was like, well, clients could go to both, but it's also a completely different clientele. So yeah, I just went for it and opened this one. This one was a lot harder because obviously the first time round I didn't have anything else to kind of worry about, whereas I had to worry about the running of that one as well as getting this up and running. And that was like yeah, super stressful. So I feel like, if in all honesty, after I actually did this one, I kind of fell out of love for a little bit with it, and I kind of just thought, "Oh, why have I, like, this is the responsibility, to everything, the toll it kind of took on me, even just mentally, the pressure." But I feel like now I'm through the other side and I'm really enjoying it again.
Amazing. And again, how do you balance having out a successful and a
Mhm.
business that's got so many like facets to it? Like, how do you balance that with being a mum?
I'd say just organisation. Obviously, I'm lucky now where Frank's at school. It's a lot more easy. It's a lot more structured. His school's literally 2 minutes from mine, so I drop him off, go to school. They're also great with, like, they have a breakfast club, so I can drop him off at like 7 a.m. if I need to. He's got an after school club which goes till about 6, so that's really good. So my mum had an operation a few months ago and she wasn't able to drive, and I feel like that I really noticed, because my mum will help me out like once a week with him and things. So that was quite hard, and I was like, oh my god. And I find when it's like half term, summer holidays, I do sort of lose the plot a little bit, because it's just everything else to worry about, like he would want his lunch, he want this, he want that, and he obviously wants the attention. And that's the only thing that I'd say I do kind of struggle with, where I'd say maybe the negative of when I had sort of shifts and whatever at NARS is, I don't really have a day off now, if that makes sense. So like my time, I feel like it's not as good quality maybe with him, because it's often like I see him after school, but then I'll still be working till the evening, and he's just kind of doing his, playing with his friends, or it's just not as, that's the only thing I'd say. But obviously where he's older now, he can kind of entertain himself, he plays with his toys and whatever, so it is a little bit easier in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not easy. And I mean, I'm not a single parent, but I can understand it from the
Hmm.
perspective of the child of a single parent.
Yeah,
And like when you're young, he's at the age where he is understanding more, like what mummy's
yeah,
like, I'm sure. But when he gets older to my age, he'll hopefully understand like I do and actually respect mum so much
yeah,
of all the, like you said, the sacrifices that you
yeah,
made to ensure that he had a better life, that you
yeah,
created this better world for you guys,
yeah,
and maybe given opportunities that he wouldn't have had otherwise, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
So I'm sure he will like, respect you when he's older.
yeah, yeah.
What would you say to people who, maybe want to start their own business and
Hmm.
they're single parents? Like, what
Yeah,
would you say to them? Because I think you briefly touched on it before, but like,
yeah.
what would be your like main advice to them?
I would say, see the end goal and then kind of break it down and work out what you have to do, even if it's just temporarily, to get to that point. Just sort of like utilizing what is around you. If, childcare's expensive, like I said, seeing if there's another mum around who's in the same position who you can swap days with, because that's then, free, anything like that. And even if something's just, yeah, like for a short term, maybe 6 months, you have to drive further to drop them off at their grandparents or something like that. But if that's then going to get you the pay rise, that's going to get you X, Y, and Z, or, things like that, then it is worth it in the long run. And I think, yeah, that's kind of my only advice, is just using whatever you can around you, and any sort of different options that there may be. If you can work from home, I mean, a couple of my girls, I now have them do admin for the salon, and they do that alongside, so they do like makeup, hair, things like that, but they will do their admin hours from home. They've like like an iPad, and they have a phone that connects to the salon phone, so they're able to do that around their children. And I think as well, working with people who understand is a big thing as well. I think when you work whatever kind of partnership, employment or anything, being, yeah, just around people who understand her and are willing to help.
I think it's one thing to work in a place like women with women, but
Yeah.
parent with parent as well. I can only imagine how much support they feel, because you have been in that situation before.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
really do respect you, because I remember even when we worked together, like
Yeah.
with some people where I could see that they were just sort of floating on by, just get,
Yeah.
paycheck to paycheck. They didn't really care about like doing better for themselves.
Yeah.
just really looking forward to the weekend, partying, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
like I always felt like you were one of those people who were the complete opposites, where
Yeah.
you're always working really hard. I didn't know what your end goals were, but I always felt like you had something you were working hard to achieve for.
Mhm.
I think obviously like Frankie was a big part of that equation as well. So
Yeah.
you've come so far from where you
Thank you.
were. So I really do respect you for that.
Thank you. I do actually think that mums, out of all the people I've worked with, whether it's at NARS or even in the salon, mums work so hard. And I think there is a misconception that, oh, their kids are going to be ill or this or that, or, but it's not, it might be true in some cases, but from what I have seen, it's not, because they know that they've got that responsibility. And that's whether they're single or they've got a partner. They just get on with it. There's kind of no excuses. And they will find a way. So yeah, I think it's nice.
You're right. It was the same with my mum. Like she, at the end of the day, had a child, but she had to put food on the table. She had bills to
Hmm.
pay,
Yeah,
and
you have no choice.
yeah, she had no choice, and she had to rely on herself only.
Hmm.
And yeah, you have family members and support, but still, your actual immediate family unit is just you and your child.
Yeah, yeah.
You do. No, totally respect that. Thank you so much, Al, just for agreeing to be a guest on this video. I know it's not easy to go on camera and talk about, personal life,
Hmm.
etc., your struggles, but I really do appreciate it. And I think you will be an inspiration to so many people who watch this,
Thank
not
you.
only as a single parent, but also as a successful business owner. I really wish you the best for your businesses. I really, really hope that they only
Deborah.
go on to become even more successful. So
Yeah.
thank you for being on this episode with me.
No, thank you so much for inviting me.